For years, I've argued that the only foreseeable threat on the horizon to the dominance of Silicon Valley monopolies such as Twitter has been the threat of federal regulation. So far, it hasn't happened. But on Wednesday, Twitter blocked the New York Post from sharing an article critical of Hunter Biden. Not only did it block the paper's Twitter account from sharing that article, but it blocked every other Twitter user from sharing the article, and it temporarily froze the New York Post Twitter account, and it also suspended the accounts of other users that attempted to share that article. This led to responses from some Republican congressmen and senators, such as Senator Josh Hawley here of Missouri, threatening to contact the Federal Election Commission to look into whether this was a violation of campaign finance or election laws. And other politicians talked about perhaps making Twitter become a publisher rather than a platform, which would open it up to liability, to being sued for the things it publishes. And other politicians have even suggested regulating Twitter as if it were a utility. So is that going to happen? I don't know. Republicans have threatened similar action, and they held both Congress and the Senate, in addition to the presidency, for 2 years, and nothing really happened to Twitter or to Facebook or to Google or any other Silicon Valley company for that matter. But will it happen now? I don't know. If you're concerned and you want to limit your risk, let's look at a couple of ways of doing so. We open the Portfolio Armor iPhone app and we enter in Twitter's symbol, TWTR. Then we enter in a number of shares. Here I'll enter 1,000. And next we enter in the largest decline we're willing to risk. Here, for this example, I'll enter 25%. Next, we can decide the time frame of the hedge, anything from this week all the way out until January of 2023. Here, I'll stick with our default, which aims for options expiring in approximately 6 months. I tap Find Optimal Hedge, and here I'm presented with the optimal put options to protect against a greater than 25% decline in 1,000 shares of Twitter between now and March 19th. As you can see, the cost here was $3,100, or 6.74% of position value. To be conservative, that was calculated at the ask, assuming you bought the puts at the ask, but in reality, you can usually buy them at some price between the bid and ask. Now, if you want to lower this cost, one thing you can do is indicate you're willing to limit your possible upside. So let's use the same 25% as a cap, and now let's see what happens. This time we're presented with an optimal collar, which means it's a long put position and a short call position. And the net cost of this is negative $520. That means that if you were to open this hedge on Wednesday, you would have received a net credit of $520, or 1.13% of position value. That, again, is calculated conservatively, assuming you bought the puts at the ask and you sold the calls at the bid. So, in reality, you would have likely received a net credit higher than $520 when opening this hedge. So, if you're long Twitter and you're concerned about the possibility of government action finally against the company, this may be something to consider.